Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we're going to start working on our API and API responses. So we need to get real-time weather data for which we need to integrate web services that will give us access to the real-time data according to the user's location. Now, fetching data from network in Swift is straightforward due to the built-in APIs designed for network request. To get started, we will actually focus on just a few key components, and then we're going to start working on the code. So first thing we're going to use is something called URL session. Now, URL session is a foundation for managing network tasks in Swift. It provides the tools to create and handle data retrieval from the internet seamlessly. Next, you have URL request. And the URL request is a fundamental component for constructing and specifying the details of your network request. You can tailor requests to suit your requirements by defining elements like URL, HTTP method, and headers. And then you have decoder. Decoder is essential for handling the data retrieval from the web. The decoder allows us to parse and transform data, especially when it is structured in a format like JSON. Now, this step is vital for extracting the meaningful information from the response, and the decoder takes the responsibility to translate your JSON data into Swift types. Okay, so with that, we're gonna basically first check out Open Weather Map API, and the endpoint that we're gonna be using is called Open Weather Map. So https openweathermap.org/current. So this actually gives us the access to the current weather. It takes latitude and longitude as the parameter, like the input parameter. It also takes app ID, which is the API key, so you can register yourself with an API key, and you get the API key and you can use that. Okay, and then you have some other properties. So it says app ID is required, so you can see these three fields are required in order to successfully make a call to this endpoint right here. But there are other things that you can actually provide. For example, you can provide the response type. You want to receive response in XML, HTML, or JSON. The default mode is JSON, so that's why we will not be specifying that. Units is something that we will specify. By default, unit is in matrix systems, and we are going to be using, or actually says standard will be applied. So standard is matrix system, that's what it uses, and we want to use imperial, so that's why we want to actually go with the imperial as a parameter option for units. Now you can specify the language, that output language that you want to support. So if you're writing this and you need a locale support, Open Weather Map API actually supports that as well. Okay, so this is basically the API endpoint that we will be using. Now, response from this API actually looks in a certain way. And let's take a look at that. So response, this is the response, this is a sample response that we get from this endpoint, and as you can see, we actually get the coordinate information back, whatever the coordinate information we have actually requested. So you can always use this to validate whether it is the location that you've requested or not. Then you have this weather object, weather key, which has an object associated with it, which is an array of a type, and this type is basically the weather, identifying what the weather conditions are going to be. So main weather condition is rain, and there's a description, there's an icon too. So there is an iconography that Open Weather Map API provides, and you can actually take advantage of that if you have if you want to map your responses to those icons that they have created. Then it's gonna talk about another key base. Then you have main key, which has most of the stuff that you're gonna need. For example, temperature, what it feels like, minimum maximum pressure, humidity, all that stuff. Wind is defined in another key, rain is defined in another key, and so on and so forth. And you also have name of the location. So this is the response that we get. Now based on this response, we want to basically create our classes structure, so we can use this response with JSON data to decode this response into a Swift structure. Okay, so let's go ahead and minimize this. Okay, and I'll bring it back once we start designing, once if we need to reference this. But let's go ahead and start by creating a weather response. So we're going to create a new folder. In this folder is going to be called models. So this is our model, and we are going to create a new file, and let's create a Swift file, and we're going to name this file weather response. Okay, import from foundation is good. We're going to create a struct called weather response. This is going to be conforming to decodable protocol. So decodable protocol is basically a protocol that is wrapped inside codable protocol. So codable is the combination of decodable and encodable. So you can actually go with either decodable if you want to just specify exactly what you're looking for. In this case, we are only looking to decode. We're not going to encode anything from our side, so we can actually just go with the decodable. Okay, alternatively, you can actually specify codable as well. There is no harm in that. Okay, now we're going to create our first property called coord. Okay, now coord is basically a coordinate which is going to represent the coordinate response. So if we open our response, and I'm going to actually keep it right here. So if you see coord is one of the key, and I want to keep the key, the name of the property is same as the key, so our JSON decoder can easily recognize which one we are talking about. Now here we have coord, which actually is an object that contains two different keys. It's a dictionary that contains two different keys, longitude and latitude. Okay, so best way to handle this is create another struct inside the weather response, so we can create another struct here, and let's take coord. Actually, let's define it. So coordinate response. Okay, so coordinate response is going to be basically the struct that we are interested in. We have lon and lat as two properties. So we have longitude, which is created with lon key, and latitude created with lat key. Okay, so we have longitude and latitude, and now we have this struct created. We can actually just say that this coord is going to be of type coordinate response, and coordinate response has these two, and since it also conforms to decodable protocol, that means we'll be able to basically, our JSON data will be able to parse it easily. Now that's the first one. Okay, next is basically a weather response. So let's go ahead and create weather. Okay, and this is going to be a weather response. So basically, let's see, right here. Okay, so weather key is gonna have the main weather response. Okay, so let's create another struct here. Okay, and let's call this weather decodable. Right, and our weather is going to have a few properties. For example, it's going to have an ID, which is going to be of type double. It's going to have main, which is going to be of type string, description, and icon. Okay, so we are not using icon, but I'm just gonna create it in case you are planning to use it. So as you can see, our weather key is mapped directly to this key, and we have the struct, which actually conforms to decodable protocol, and it has ID, ID, main, description, and icon. Okay, so now you get the idea how we are actually gonna map these. Now this is another variation I wanted to show, because weather is an array. If you notice, it's an array of a dictionary, array of an object. So we're gonna create it that way. We're gonna create it like, you know, that this is an array of weather. Okay, so that's how we're gonna actually decode. So now you understand how we are actually creating our model class to tailor how our JSON response looks like, so the JSON decoder can handle it. All right, so let's go ahead and minimize this because I'm not gonna need this anymore. We're gonna continue to create our properties. We're gonna have a main property. Main is the main response. And we're gonna create this class struct here called main response. Again, we're gonna go with the decodable protocol, and main has a few things that we are interested in. For example, temperature is what we are interested in. Temperature minimum, maximum, and humidity. So these are like, you know, the properties that exist inside the main response, and we are interested in those. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we have main, and we have temperature, minimum, maximum, and then you have humidity. Okay, next we're gonna basically create our wind property. So basically the wind property is going to have speed and degree. That's what those two are, like, you know, that we are interested in. And then we're also going to get the name of the place, so we can actually show the name of the city of which, like, you know, this response belongs to. Okay, so let's create name, because name is the easiest. It's just a string, so I'm going to put it at the top. So name string, and then we have the weather, sorry, not weather, wind, and this is going to be wind response. Okay, so let's create a new struct here, and this is going to be a decodable conforming struct. Speed is going to be one property, and degree is going to be another property. Okay, so these are, like, you know, two properties that our wind response is going to support. Okay, so this is basically, this struct now is representing the entire JSON response that we're going to be dealing with, and this is basically going to be used by the JSON decoder for decoding the JSON data and representing it into the Swift struct. Now each struct in here, notice that it is conformed, it is conforming to decodable protocol, which indicates that the instances of this struct can be decoded from an external data format like JSON. Okay, and because we have mapped the structure, all these structs according to the response that we are going to retrieve, it's actually the mapping is going to fulfill, and all the data will be populated using the JSON decoder. Okay, so now we are done with the response, and we are gonna basically hop on to the next video and create our API manager. So I'll see you guys there. Thank you.